There's something peculiar about middle age. The sense that life has slowed down into manageable routines. You stop expecting surprises, and you forget, little by little, that the world was never as safe as it seemed. That illusion shattered for me and Helen one October, the year we stumbled into something neither of us can forget. We'd been together 20 years by then, two Parisians who'd traded noise for quiet, cityscapes for the slow landscapes of the Lorraine countryside. That weekend, we set out on one of our usual drives, a habit we'd picked up since moving east, winding through forgotten villages, stopping at churches and small war cemeteries, filling our camera rolls with weathered statues and faded gravestones. Our plan had been met. Simple enough. Lunch at a cafe, a walk along the Moselle, a slow afternoon browsing a second-hand bookshop or two. But the GPS took us along a detour, some minor road branching away from the A4, and before we realised it, we were pulling into Saint-Avold. It was a small, quiet town, the kind where the streets empty by 5 and the shutters close early. The afternoon light was thin and washed out, turning the sandstone houses the colour of old bones. We parked near the American military cemetery, with its endless rows of white marble crosses standing at attention on a slope that overlooked the woods beyond. Helene always had a fondness for cemeteries, not out of morbidity but respect, and so we wandered among the graves for a while, reading names and dates aloud, wondering about the lives behind them. It was at the far end of the cemetery, past the last line of headstones, where we noticed the old path, barely more than a break in the undergrowth, half swallowed by brambles and weeds. Curiosity is always harmless at first, and the path looked like it had been used, though not recently. There were no signs, no markers, and the woods beyond were dense, darker than the fading daylight should allow. We followed it. The path wound downward, away from the graves, deeper into the forest, where the air grew damp and cold. It felt like stepping into another century, the muffled quiet of the woods broken only by the brittle snap of leaves underfoot. After perhaps 15 minutes, the trees opened into a clearing. That was when we saw them. The stones were the first thing to catch my eye. 8 of them arranged in a perfect circle, worn and grey, crusted with moss, their surfaces scarred with carvings too weathered to read. In the middle stood a flat stone slab, darker than the others, like it had absorbed years of rain and something else beneath the surface. And they were there too, the people. 6 or 7 of them, cloaked and hooded, standing in a ring around the slab. Their faces were hidden, their hands raised, their bodies utterly still. A 7th figure knelt before the slab, its head bowed. At first, the scene struck me as theatrical, like we'd wandered into some local reenactment. But the longer I stood there, the more I felt it wasn't meant for human eyes. The air in the clearing wasn't right. It was too still, as though the trees were holding their breath. Even the usual forest sounds, birds, wind, the distant rustle of animals, had vanished, leaving a silence so deep I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. The figures began to chant. It was low and dissonant at first, rising and falling like waves pulled by an unseen tide. The words were guttural, almost painful to listen to, spoken in a rhythm that made the skin crawl. I couldn't understand the language, but something in my bones recognized it, something older than any human tongue. Then the figure on the slab moved. It wasn't the kind of movement you'd expect from someone lying down. There was no panic or struggle. It lifted its head slowly, as if waking from a long, heavy sleep, and turned toward us. I don't remember running, only the sensation of the ground moving too fast beneath my feet. Branches whipped past us, the forest seeming to stretch and narrow, the path winding longer than it should have. Behind us I heard it, the sound of stone grinding against stone, like the earth itself was shifting. And under that, the steady, patient rhythm of the chant, following us no matter how far we ran. We burst out of the woods near the cemetery, panting, the last rays of the sun bleeding out behind the hills. Everything was normal. The town lay still and quiet, its windows lit against the growing dark. We didn't speak as we drove home, both too shaken, trying to convince ourselves we'd misunderstood what we'd seen. But that night, the real horror began. The dreams came first. Each night, without fail, I found myself standing back in that clearing, only the stones weren't empty. We were the ones inside the circle, Helene and I, standing motionless, unable to move or cry out, our hands raised toward the sky. The cloaked figures surrounded us, their faces still hidden, but their eyes, black, unblinking, pierced through the darkness. At the center of the circle, where the slab had been, there was only a hole, deep and formless, a pit that seemed to breathe. The dreams lasted longer each night, lingering after I woke like the echo of a bell. Some mornings Hélène would wake already crying, and neither of us could say why. Our house grew cold, no matter how high we set the heat. Electrical things flickered and failed. Clocks stopped at 3:17 every night. Then the bruises appeared. Small at first. Dark marks on Helene's arms, on my chest, faint but unmistakable, like we'd been gripped by unseen hands in our sleep. One morning, I woke to find 3 parallel scratches across my shoulder, dry and scabbed over, though I had no memory of pain. It escalated. A week after Santa Vold, I came home to find the back garden disturbed. The grass had been scraped away in a perfect ring, as if something heavy had stood there. At the centre was a single stone, grey and weathered, bearing the same mark I'd seen on the stones in the clearing. 2 overlapping circles, bisected by a vertical line. I smashed the stone with a hammer, but the damage was superficial. The symbol remained etched beneath the surface, untouchable. That night, the dreams became worse. In the final one, I stood alone in the circle. The figures closed in, and I could finally see their faces. Not masks, not human either. Their skin was stretched too tight, their mouths too wide, and their black eyes watched me with the patience of something that knew it would outlast me. The chanting stopped, and the ground began to crack, the slab splitting open. I woke before I saw what climbed out. We left the house the next day. We didn't sell it. We didn't tell anyone. There are no words for this kind of thing that don't sound insane. We packed our bags and left the life we'd built behind, leaving only silence and the faint scent of damp earth in the walls. Even now, I'm not sure if we escaped. The dreams have become rare, but they still return. Sometimes I catch Hélène staring out the window at night, eyes fixed on some point beyond the glass. Sometimes I wake to find dirt on the floor near the bed, as though the earth had followed us indoors. And once, only once, I heard the chant again, faint, from somewhere just beyond the reach of hearing, when the world was quiet and the sky too dark for stars. I've learned to live with the knowing. Some places are never meant to be found, and some rituals never meant to be witnessed. What terrifies me isn't what we saw, or even what followed. It's the certainty that the circle isn't broken, only waiting.